everybody, welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name is Zee Garcia.
And I'm Camilla.
Today we're taking a look at Aeon's End, the new age here, which is the game that introduces Expedition Mode to Aeon's End. Now, there's a lot of Aeon's End stuff out there. This is not the latest stuff, but it is some stuff that I played recently on What's Happening, a different show, and really enjoyed that in app form, and decided to check this out and try it on the table. And played a bunch of it, went through the expedition that's built into this, and, messed around with it quite a bit. So we're going to show you, I'm going to show you a little bit of what the game looks like on the table. I'll briefly explain Aeon's End if you don't know some of the concepts there. And then we'll come back and tell you what we think of this game. Here we go. The main thing that the New Age box introduces to Aeon's End is the Expedition Mode. Expedition Mode is basically, at least as presented in this box, a deck that has a story that you are going to read. You are then going to, it tells you to read the back of the next card. You're going to read the back of the next card. Eventually, it'll tell you, find a baddie, fight that baddie. At the end of that fight, if you win, you are going to move on to the next fight, and you are going to have souped up bad guy cards and some ability for the players. Some level 1 special thing that you put in your deck of cards. Fight that guy after you read again some more story for the second fight. And again, the bad guy will get beefier and you're going to get some special ability and so on through 4 fights. Now, if you ever lose one of them, you fight again the same character. And if you lose again, then you just move on with the story, all right? So the idea is Expedition Mode gives you, in this game, a small 4-fight campaign with 4 new baddies or, characters, and then, of course, new of these breach mages that you begin with some and you'll unlock some as the game goes on. And then once you are done playing through those 4 fights, then you have all that content to mix into your other Aeon's End stuff if you so choose. New cards, new mages, new baddies, what have you. But above and beyond that, the main thing it also introduces is that you are now allowed to go back and use any of your cards, any baddies, any breach mages, and create your own version of Expedition Mode, where you randomize the monster, and you begin with a normal character. After the fight, then you'll take some of those cards you unlocked in this game, and you'll shuffle them into the deck of cards that the monster is using against you, the nameless there. And so they'll be beefier, but you get a special ability, like a souped-up card. And so you, without having the narrative text, you'll create your own 4-fight campaign, if you would. That is the main thing that Expedition Mode is going to give you. You don't have the neat writing, but you can do your own sort of scaling combat, all right? So having gotten that out of the way, and the idea of, a mini campaign, the way the game works, if you happen to not know that, I'll give you a very quick overview of how this is going to go. Everybody has a breach mage, a magical character that they're using to combat a monster, a nameless monster in this setting, in this world. You have cards over here that you will be able to purchase, and you are going to have a turn-ordered deck right here. Every round, you flip over a card from this deck, and if it shows a number, then that player with the corresponding token is going to take a turn. Having finished, we flip over another one. If it shows Nemesis, then the bad guy is going to take a turn, and we flip the next one. Hey, look, it's me again. I would take another turn. Then it's player 2. Then it's the Nemesis again. Then it's player 2. This is obviously a 2-player only game. You would have different cards in here for 3 and 4 players. Once that's done, we shuffle all this up again, and we do it again. We keep going until we take down the baddie, in this case, Magath. This is the first monster you fight. Has 45 health, and if we do that, we win. Or we'll lose if all of the mages are down to 0 health, 0 life, or if the town takes 30 hits then we are also going to lose that way. So you can lose in one of those two ways. Now, what do we do on the turn that it's our go when we flip a card that has 1 or 2 or one of the player's numbers? Well, the very first thing you may do is trigger a spell that you've got in one of these breaches. You begin with these locations, and they'll hold a card, and you can trigger that ability, a spell. You have to kind of program a spell in this game, and then it'll go off at the beginning of your next activation, usually only if you want it to. I bet you usually want it to, all right? So that's the first thing that happens. After that, you are going to then use your hand of cards to do whatever you want to. So for example, here I've got some starting cards. Crystals are going to give me ether. That is your money in this game. And this happens to be a spell that says I can either deal 1 damage or any ally draws a card. So I could, at the beginning of my turn here, I could take this card and put it right there in that opened breach. Okay? That is now ready to go off the next time I activate. And then with the crystals, there's a few things I can do with ether. I can buy cards. Any cards I buy here, they have a cost in the top corner. I'll take that card. I'll put it directly in my discard pile. I can also instead spend 2 ether to put a token down here. And if I do that enough times so that all of these have one, I can choose to take them all off and trigger this ability right here. And there might be other things that you are using the ether for, things to pull back the baddie, things like that. So let's say with these 4, I'm going to buy a recurring Jasper right here. A better version of the starting gems I have in my deck. I'd buy that, I'd put it there. With my turn done, I'm going to take a look at all the cards I played this turn, and I'm going to discard them in the order of my choice. These are all the same, so it doesn't matter. They'll go there, and then I'll replenish my hand back up to 5. Now, if I did not play a card, I do keep it and just replenish back up to 5. You do not have to discard all your cards in this game. This is my next hand. Next time I'm up, first thing I do, I trigger this if I want to. I do that, it gets discarded, right? And I could deal 1 damage over here. I could help myself or somebody else draw a card. Then I'm going to look at these and do something with them. This spark lets me deal a damage. I would then use these gems, put them over here, and then once I need to draw a hand of cards because I don't have one, I just take the entire deck and I flip it face down and I start drawing. You do not shuffle in this game. So you could start manipulating the way these cards are ordered so that things you want to come up together do come up together. So you have a lot more control and sort of sequencing of cards in this game than if every time you flipped over, you would just shuffle up. You'd never will shuffle this deck of cards. Now, something else you have noticed is that I only have one of these fully yellow, i.e. opened breaches. Something else you can use your ether for is to open these other ones. And you can spend the amount at the top to open them, and you just flip them over. So if I spend 4, I can just get this ready right now. I can put another spell there. But you can also instead do something that's listed on the inside there, which is focus. And focusing it lets me get it closer to opening it and get it cheaper also to opening. But I can also put a spell on it if I focus it this round, but I cannot choose to leave it there. At the beginning of my next activation, I have to trigger this. I can leave them here on these opened ones, but I can never leave them on one I just focused and chose to put a spell into. That's got to fire off. So that's the idea. Sometimes when the enemy goes, if we ever flip over and it's a Nemesis card, he'll have a line of cards himself. I can just move myself out of the way here. He's going to have a line of cards, and he'll do those activations, and then we reveal a new one from his deck. It might be an attack that tells you what he does. He's going to be, in this case, putting some fly and maggot tokens over here. That's his nastiness. He's going to build up some abilities, and so he will put a fly into play, which is the backside of this token. Here's a fly, and then he says that any player suffers 3 damage. Okay, this is an attack, so it goes away immediately. But some of these cards, like this one, are going to stick around and play. This one happens to say 3 power. So we put 3 tokens on this card, and then every time that Magath here activates, we're going to remove one of those tokens. Upon taking the last one, this nasty ability triggers. But we can intercept that by spending 6 ether, as it says, and discarding this before it triggers. So that's one way we can deal with those. And then there will also be some monsters in here, some baddies like that. And they'll have an amount of health, something they do every time we trigger the line. And if we deal enough damage, then this goes away too. That's the general idea of the baddies. That's what's going on over here. And that should give you enough of an idea of what's going on in the game to help you sort of decide if this is something that speaks to you. But let's go ahead and go back up top and let's give you some thoughts. This is one of those games, and game systems, I should say, or families of games that kind of passed me by. That I did not get a chance to, come up with, if you would, right? I did not play the original Aeon's End. I have not played Aeon's End Legacy. I feel like a lot of people played that and spoke highly of that. And then, this is somewhere in the middle of that family, if you would, and there's stuff after this. But one thing I did see consistently online as I was looking up these games, this family of games, was the question will come up, where do I start? Right? What's a good jumping on point for Aeon's End? And more often than not, people do come down on the New Age is a fantastic jumping on point. And while I don't necessarily have another thing to reference that to, in a bubble, I agree.
Right, and I think that that's really relevant still because I, as well as you, I did not get into the game in the beginning when it first came out.
Right.
And so I definitely had that overwhelming feeling of where do I start? I mean, you're describing me right there. I was like, where do I start? I was like, I guess I've missed the boat on this game. And I have kind of almost written the game off for a year or two because I thought I was past the point of knowing to where to even start.
Right.
So I'm really grateful, I guess, for this starting point here and such a clear, this is a great place to jump in. This was my first experience at all with Aeon's End. And I do feel like, especially with this expedition mode, it really eased that entry point.
Right.
It has the how to set up that first game to kind of get it going. And then after you do that, it's like, now you're going to expedition, read this appendix, or whatever, appendium, afterward to kind of open up the rest of the game for yourself.
Yeah, it's a really good on-ramping. It reminds me a little bit of Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion in a way, that after Gloomhaven had been out, they put out this sort of smaller, kind of, again, we're going to ramp you up to a full game of this and introduce a new way to play. This expedition mode really is a new way to play the game where you can link 4 baddies together and you get better, beefier, they get better and beefier. But you can just play one-offs also.
Well, and it also feels, I think, when you're coming into the whole box in the expedition mode, it feels a little less overwhelming to be like, oh, here's the bad guy I need, here's the good guys we start with,
100%.
and here are our barracks, here are the items you have to choose from. And then the next one, you choose some, and whichever you don't choose, you banish the rest of them,
Yes.
And so it really unlocks the box as you go through the expedition in
That's
a really unique way.
I love that when you crack this open, it's a bunch of decks shrink wrapped that say, stop, don't open this. You get a little bit. Yeah, it's very nice. It does a really good hand-holding sort of without feeling like you're not getting the full experience. You are definitely immediately playing Aeon's End. But I'm just not overwhelmed by choices.
That's it. You're not... like in Jaws the Lion, they kind of slow roll over the first couple games. The rules.
Yeah.
This isn't. You're playing Aeon's End, like you said, in the first game. You just don't have to choose your baddie. You have a very limited pool if you're going to be, and then you don't have to choose your items or look for those synergies or have to know which ones do I want for this bad guy, my character. It's like, here, just start playing.
Yes. As far as the gameplay itself, I really like the way this works. I like that there is so much to focus on your turn. It has that neat feel of, okay, so I can open my breach, or I can focus them if I can't quite flip them over and open them. I can obviously buy new stuff and put that in my discard so to focus on what I want to do. I could try to slow down the bad guy because if I spend enough money, I could remove this counting down bomb from play and it won't go off. If I One, so I can just focus on my little, what do they call it? You can
Your
focus
little-
your little cubes at the
At the
bottom.
bottom, what is it? Your focus.
Of your play. It is gain a charge.
A charge, that's
you
right.
can gain a charge. And so when you're fully charged up, then you can spend your big ability and cash them all in. There's all these interesting things you can choose to look at and focus on, and you can't do it all. They're all interesting. It's very engaging turn to turn. Even when you have a bad hand in this game, which will happen, you draw up that one hand that's cycling through, and it's like a bunch of the lame gems and a spark or whatever, and you're like, well, that's not great. I don't have a lot to do this round, but you do actually. You can choose to do a couple of different things. I found that interesting.
Right, and I think because there are those little things that you can do, but it doesn't have that kind of split focus feel where it's like, there's so much to do, I can't do everything.
Sure.
It really feels more tension building of like, ooh, which one do I want to do, and how do I maximize my hand to do that? Which, even on those lame hand turns that you have, they don't feel like a waste.
Right.
So you have that lame hand where like, I'm not going to do the damage. That's really what I wanted to do. Or I guess it's a buying and I'm one gem short, something like that. But it doesn't feel like a waste because there are all these little ways you can piece it together and maximize that, quote, bad hand. But speaking of that as well, one thing that I was really kind of nervous of on the game, that if I would like or not, is that you're not reordering your deck. You don't shuffle your deck.
Right.
So you're building the deck, but then you're also layering it, and that's the order those cards are going to come out in. And I don't have a good memory, so I was like, am I going to be okay with that? Am I going to like that kind of memory element to it? But what I think makes it okay for me is you do have a chance to kind of reorder your deck, and that's in the way you discard them.
Right.
So as you buy something, you know right where it's going to go because you buy it and it goes right onto the discard pile. So that's breaking up the two hands that you just drew. And then as you play out your cards and you're reordering them, you get to choose the order that they go into that discard deck. So you can start to, I don't want all those lame gems together. Well, let me start putting some space between them.
Yeah.
And so every round you are building your deck and what's available in your deck, but you're also building these like bundles and clusters in your deck, which are really fun to see that kind of morph through the gameplay.
And it's also not to be underestimated how quickly you can take a turn in this game. You forget how much shuffling you do in most deck building games. My goodness. So it is amazing to have that turn where you like buy a thing, do whatever, grab your discards and organize them in the discard, and then draw 1, 2, 3. I'm short a couple of cards. 4, 5.
Right.
Oh my goodness, that is so great. I really did enjoy that. I'm not good at like strategizing with it necessarily, but I did not find it detracted at all from like I was also feeling like, really, it just stays the same order? Isn't that a little stale?
Right.
No, I don't feel it anyway.
Right. It's really funny because I went into it thinking it'd be cumbersome, and it actually ended up being kind of freeing.
Yeah, it's
and
fast.
so it's not like, oh, my worry was actually completely opposite of how I ended up feeling about it.
There's also the turn order thing. What did you think about that? The turn order being
random.
Yeah, it sort of does that thing where like everybody goes once or twice based on the player count, and you top deck it, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I think I'm very split on that.
Yeah.
I liked it unless I didn't, is the best way I can explain it. I thought there was a really good tension, like, oh, if I could go next, I hope that we get one more turn before the nemesis, and if that's the case, we're going to be great, because I need this to go off. Or, hey, if we can go ahead and have them go, because then they do this over here, and that'd be good, because I'm going to counter it. So it has a good tension to it turning over, but it can lead to a little bit too much downtime between your turns.
That's possible.
If you go twice right at the top, or your last cards, if you're playing in a 2-player game, or you go really early and then you don't go through until really late again, or so it can lead to a little bit of like, ugh, or if the nemesis goes twice in a row. So I think
technically the nemesis, we did not see this, but they could go 4 times in a row at the bottom of a round twice, and at the top of the next one twice.
Right.
Sure, but that's really like low odds of that happening, but I get it,
So it's one of those, I really liked the tension of it, and I thought it led to very variable gameplay until it didn't work.
Sure.
But so I kind of fall, I think, right in the middle of that, where it's like, I'm good with it. I think it's worth having it in there for those highs, but just know you're also going to come with the lows.
I like it because it opens up design space for the game, where there's like characters that will mess with the order and do stuff. That's interesting. And I also like that it helps simulate the chaos of this fight.
Yeah.
Where like the monster might get a one-up on you before you were quite ready to like, I enjoy that. Thematically, it's a neat mechanism that fits a boss battling a magical encounter, you know? So I enjoyed that. I thought that was cool. And this is a boss battling deck building, which I also thought was pretty neat. It feels very much like a boss battle. You are taking down the big bad, taking down that life total from like crazy amounts sometimes, 80, whatever. You're like, it's impossible.
Right.
And it feels really good as you start taking big swings and big bites out. You know what I mean? It's got this great ramping tension to it.
Right, and one thing I was impressed with, too, it being that boss battler deck building cooperative game, was just how interactive you were with the other players as well. I think that the card design and powers are very unique as you're building your deck, where you do get, not emotionally attached, of course, but like you get like invested in a card. Like, I really like the tethering darts, or I really like, you know, the resonant pearls, you know, whatever it is. But also seeing that interaction between the other players. That it's not a boss battler where we're like, all right, on my turn, I'm just doing this, and then on your turn, you just do, you know, but you're like, hey, let's get this, and if we both get one of these cards, then hopefully if we get our decks in sync, then we can chain off each other back and forth, and you have that really great combo and interaction with the other players to where you do not feel like you are playing a solo boss battler here, that two people are just wailing on this same person. You feel like you're having to coordinate your attacks, you're having to talk through your hand, you're having to organize your decks to where those cards come out at the right time. Hopefully you're having, you know, the right combination of cards in your hand. And so I really like the player interaction cooperative element of this. Yeah,
there's a lot of checking. Are you holding this card?
Yeah.
Oh, you should buy another one of those so it comes up. Yeah, I agree. And I also like that the characters have their own starting deck, usually with their own 2 or, you know, 1 or 2 special cards just they have, and they begin with it. And immediately makes them a little different. They have their own ability, their own deck of cards. Their breach things might be different. Some of them don't even have all 4. You're like, what's going on? They begin open in the back sometimes instead of the first one. The variety here is just tremendous, which is, I guess, why this game has had so many releases. Now, to talk about a couple of small negatives I personally have, the settings, the first one, and this is fully maybe because of my ignorance, you know, the setting, which I admittedly know very little about, feels a little bit sort of generic, magic-y, fantasy-ish, you know. I like the monsters, and I like their design. And I like the idea of we are these powerful people fighting monstrosities that are, you know, much bigger and stronger than we are. But the trappings are, to me, generic. I don't know, maybe because I haven't read more backstory to this. That might help. It feels like that to me.
It does, and I think that's, again, worth noting here, because if this is a starting on point, we're assuming that you don't know all that lore or all that history or anything like that. I think one of the things that kind of salvaged that for me, because I feel the same thing. It's like another barrier to this is I don't generally love fantasy. I like fantasy. I'm definitely more on the sci-fi, you know, side of taste. So that was a little bit of a barrier here. One of the things that saved is I was the one character for a couple plays that was kind of science-y, kind of nerdy. You know, I was like, oh, okay, so it didn't, that made it feel not as generic. And then, you know, as you unlock the one that has, I can't remember the names, I'm sorry.
Well, we shouldn't spoil it, probably.
Oh, yeah, there's another one that comes out as you go through that, again, I think is just a little more real-world grounded, you know, they're kind of like, oh, well, that's cool. I like that. And so it took it back to a little bit more real world instead of just fantasy. But I agree with you. To me, it was a little bit of a barrier.
To me, the gameplay and the way they present it here is worth me feeling like I'm jumping into the middle of season 2 of a show. You know what I mean? It's like one amazing episode of a TV show, and I haven't seen it, and I jump into just that one show, that one episode, and I'm like, okay, I'll put up with not quite knowing what's up with these two And what happened to this guy that he's so sad? Because the rest of the show, that one episode, is amazing.
Yeah.
That's what this feels like to me a little bit. There's some writing, and the expedition has, flavor that you go through. But yes, I felt a little like, huh? Who? What? And then my other negative point is actually about the expedition mode. The expedition mode is really neat. It's a cool idea. But it's especially cool if it's a narrated expedition that you're going through. Because when you crack this open, there's a deck in there. You'll open up and you'll read what's going on. You flip over the back. I showed you. And then it tells you, like, grab this baddie. Fight them. After that, you get juicier cards, and they get, better cards also for their deck of cards. And it feels like you're going through a narrated story. That's great. Really like that. And it's only 4 monsters you're fighting, so it's a short campaign. Doable, very doable. When you play Expedition Mode again, which you can do, you're really just grabbing a random monster, grabbing random mages, or picking, whatever, playing, and when that's done, with no setup, no story, unless you tell it to yourself, then you grab another baddie, they're a little beefier, you're a little beefier, you do it again. And it feels like artificial ramping. It feels like one of those video games where you're like traversing the world, and when you finally find like, ooh, I found a vampire axe, he heals me. Then everybody suddenly, all the baddies are like, yeah, we have this armor that is good for that. And it's like, wait a second. I just got better, but so did everybody else. That feels artificial rubber banding a little bit.
Yeah, I think it almost feels like to do the expedition mode again, I would almost want like a little booster pack or something that comes with those 6 or probably more than that, probably 10 to 12 cards that give you those little bit of flavor and tells you what to grab. But that'd be hard to do because they don't know what content you're going to have. And so it'd be like if it was like an app or something, and you could chase like, I have these boxes. Build me something that gives you a story that's going to tell you what to grab. Something like that, I think, would be a middle ground for that, because otherwise it's like, why do the expedition?
Yeah.
You're just...
Those products, not quite what you're saying, but there are other products that are not a full box that do have new expeditions in them that are, again, narrative. But it's not quite what you're saying, where it's like, I own all this. Create an expedition for me.
And give me the story and give me the experience that I had the first time I played this. So for sure.
So there we go. That is our thoughts. Anything else you want to mention before we jump to some final thoughts?
No, I think I'll be okay with final thoughts.
Okay. You want to start or should I?
I can go, yeah. I'm going to come down at a 9. I really, really enjoyed the gameplay. I'm glad that it has the customization, because I think it needs that customization to keep it from feeling so samey, because the gameplay is pretty procedural.
It is.
But what keeps it from feeling that way and keeps you engaged in the game is how customizable it is.
Sure.
You're customizing the bad guy, who all feel very different. You have your character, which feel pretty similar except for their couple powers, but then those powers coupled with the individual barracks and the decks that you're building over there feel really unique, and I really appreciate that. I think it can be a little bit to set up to get into. So I'm really grateful and glad for a product like this that helps like ease that entry and show you the different items one at a time that you can kind of build up and start to get that, because once you unlock everything, to sit down and be like, okay, I need to get 3 gems, I need to get 4 relics, or make sure I have, or 4 spells and 2 relics, whatever it is to build that's recommended for your barracks. If you pull out a deck this big for each of those, that can be really overwhelming.
Yes.
So I do wish, what does bring it down a little bit for me is I wish there was a quicker way to get into that one-off, So that brings it down a little bit, but the gameplay, I love how highly cooperative it is and interactive at the same point. You're not just saying, I can take care of this, can you take care of that? It's saying, how can I support you? How can you boost me? How can I do this at the same time as you so we double our attack?
Right.
So you actually are taking an action on my turn as well through me. Like, there's just some really great moments of cooperation and collaboration to make this one that I definitely will reach for quite often and look forward to really exploring the depth of all those characters and the customization against the big bad guys.
Yeah. I'm almost right there with you. I'm going to give it an 8.5, and there's a couple of small things that hold it back from me. For me, the theme and the setting, I guess, is more what I mean. The setting, the magic you sort of setting, certainly the setup is going to be a little bit of a bear. You have to shuffle in all the basic cards to each level of the bad guy. It sort of feels like setting up a game of Pandemic, which was always the worst part of Pandemic, you know? Oh, I got to shuffle this in and stack the decks and all of that stuff. The gameplay is really good. I love being able to sort of interrupt the general flow you would expect, the flipping over the cards. It's like, well, the Nemesis is going to go next. We know this is what's left. Trigger my spell before they go, and we can do this and mess them up. It's a kind of a refreshing set of stuff among deck building, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's like all these things that feel different from all the cues that everybody took from Dominion. You know, this idea of like, you discard your hand at the end of every round, whether you used it or not. And this game says, no, why would you do that? That is nonsensical. If you didn't spend a thing, you keep it. And then you replenish your hand. The no shuffling is a weird concept of like, okay, yeah, you're sort of in the groove of the battle, and that's the cycle you're going through. Okay, that's interesting. I can dig that. There's all these ideas that are very, very interesting, and kind of go against the grain in many ways. And 9 out of 10 times, it works, and I appreciate that. So there you go. Folks, that is going to be a seal of excellence for Aeon's End, the New Age. Definitely a great jumping on point, like we said. If you haven't tried this, you feel like you missed it, that's kind of where we're at, and we think this is the place to kind of find it, to get into it.
It's not too late.
Yeah. So check this one out, everybody. That's going to do it for us. My name is Zee Garcia.
And I'm Camilla.
Go wreck on some Nameless.
Thanks for watching another video here on the Dice Tower. We really appreciate you stopping by and checking our things out. Thanks so much for joining us today. And hey, if you really like what we're doing here at the Dice Tower, then there are different ways to support the Dice Tower. One of those ways is through Patreon. We have links in the description to this video, and we have links to lots of other things we do down there, so definitely check it out. But either way, we're glad you watched us. Tell your friends about the Dice Tower. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vassell, and I hope you enjoyed this video.